Welcome to the Savage Nation. Today I want to talk about the only topic that anyone with a brain is talking about, which is Israel first, America first, or humanity first. So let me begin by first talking about why Iran must and will be stopped. You need to know a little bit about history. So let me put this in context in a way no one else has explained it so far as I can tell. Let's imagine that North Korea, a rogue nation, does not have a nuclear weapon. Just for a moment. Crazy dictatorship, people oppressed, women oppressed, people are killed for no reason. And North Korea doesn't have a nuclear weapon. Just put your thinking cap on. And they keep chanting, death to Japan. We're going to kill all the Japanese. Death to Japan. And they do this for 40 years. Death to Japan. Now, would the world let North Korea develop a nuclear weapon? So I'm trying to create context for those of you who don't want war, which I understand. Being a man of peace, I don't want war. But you are dealing with a 13th century mentality. And unless you comprehend who these mullahs are and what they actually believe and how insane they really are, there's no point in talking about this subject with you. You're not dealing with the nations that already have nuclear weapons, who do not threaten their neighbors on a daily basis. You don't hear France saying they're going to destroy Germany. You don't hear Germany saying they're going to destroy Australia. You don't hear one country or another saying they're going to take their nukes and launch them, kill people. But these 13th century throwbacks live with this idea that only through an apocalypse will peace prevail on earth. And unless you understand the mullahs, particularly this kindly looking old bastard with the white beard, unless you really understand how evil the man is, that he's Hitler in a headscarf, he's Hitler with a white beard, unless you understand that, you can't even have this conversation, because you'll say Israel caused it all. If there was no Zionism, this wouldn't be happening. You have no idea what you're talking about if you say that. Now, I could say to you that unless you know history, you're going to repeat it, and it would be true. So let me begin by saying this. Here's the history, that in only 25 years, the Arab Muslims conquered a large swath of the earth and converted people to Islam. They didn't do through love. They didn't do this through love. It was not spread the way Christianity was spread, through the teachings of Jesus, which is love thy fellow. The Muslims conquered one nation after another shortly after the death of Muhammad. I'll give you the exact dates if you'd like it. Death of Muhammad in 632. In only 25 years, they conquered Egypt, Persia, that's Iran today, Arabia. These nations were not Muslim, but based upon the teachings of Muhammad and the killings and the burnings that were done by the Islamists, they conquered these countries. They conquered portions of Spain, Egypt, Arabia, Persia, all the way into China. They conquered Armenia. They killed, they raped, they tortured, they burned villages to the ground. Only you understood history, you could have a conversation. I've heard it stated that hell is a place where there is no reason. The internet is that hell, because you have hellishly foolish people who know nothing of history, who shoot their mouths off and comment as though their opinion matters when it doesn't. So I'm going to give you a little history today, and again, put it in context for you. Israel first, America first, or humanity first? Well, we all think humanity should be first. This has nothing to do with Zionism or the Jews. They're on the front lines of Western civilization, which is the enemy of these mullahs, these throwbacks, these killers of women, these killers of civilization. If you know nothing about what goes on in Iran, please leave the forum, because you'll be deleted anyway. Do you understand what goes on in Iran under these mullahs? The crackdowns, the arbitrary arrests, the detentions, the unfair trials, the torture, the death penalty, disproportionately applied mainly to ethnic minorities and protesters in Iran. Discrimination against women, legal discrimination against women and minorities, femicide, killing babies who are girls. Domestic violence is rampant. It's accepted in this room with the throwbacks. The Baha'i community is particularly targeted, facing widespread arrests, property confiscation, exclusion from higher education. Sunni Muslims themselves and Christian converts experience persecution and discrimination from these Hitlers in a headscarf. Kurds, Baluchis, and Arabs face discrimination in Iran, in education, in employment, and political participation. Need I say LGBTQ individuals are killed, criminalized, flogged, or killed? I don't understand how the gay community isn't on the side of Israel and the United States. I can't explain it other than to say liberalism is a mental disorder and most people are stupid. There is no freedom in Iran, none whatsoever. It is just persecution after 40 years of the Iranian Revolution run by the Ministry of Intelligence. So unless you understand this, the discussion that we are having today will have no reason. Again, I'm not an expert on nuclear proliferation, but what I have studied indicates to me that this deeply embedded nuclear plant that we keep hearing about has external air supply and an external electricity supply. And I actually don't see why, through conventional methods, these external supply channels of electricity and water cannot be terminated permanently unto themselves. I don't know that we need to be directly involved. I'm sure Israel could take out the air supplies and the electricity supplies. But I believe we're already on the road to dropping the bunker busters with B-2s and putting an end to this once and for all. That's what I believe is going to happen. I believe Trump sees them like a colony of termites. And I think that the thinking right now in the Trump administration is just to go in with a pesticide, call a B-2 bomber, and kill all the termites and get it over with. I don't know that Iran is on their last legs. After all, I've widely quoted over the last week or so The Art of War by Sun Tzu, where he says, all of warfare is based on deception. All of warfare is based on deception. How do we know, as I just said, that the Iranians have not purchased or been given a nuclear warhead already? And is it possible Iran has more than one nuclear weapons development site? Okay, all of warfare is based on deception. Everyone I hear talking about it has not said what I just said to you. Nobody in the media has said this to you, which is the reason I'm doing this broadcast tonight on the Savage Nation. God has kept me alive for a few reasons. I believe one of the main reasons is to bring a different perspective to things in the world that we're facing today. How do we know Iran didn't purchase or has not been given a nuclear warhead? Maybe they have other nuclear weapons development sites, and we're all looking at one site when they're already over here. How do we know? So let's look at how the Muslims conquered so much of the world and how it was done, because it was not done through peace and love. It was done through warfare, killing, murder, rape. It's one of the most amazing stories of conquest in the history of the human race, the great days of the Arabs. The Byzantine army was smashed at the Battle of the Yarmouk, a tributary of the Jordan, in 634. The Emperor Heraclius, his energy sapped by dropsy and his resources exhausted by the Persian War, saw his new conquests in Syria, Damascus, Palmyra, Antioch, Jerusalem, and the rest fall almost immediately and without resistance to the Muslims who were invading. Large elements of the population went over to Islam. Then the Muslim armies turned east. The Persians tried to resist. The ancient Iranians, the Persians, tried to resist. They had a great, able general in Rustam. They had a great number of powerful elephants. And for 3 days, the Persians fought the Arabs at Qadisiyah in 637. And then the Arabs broke through in 637 and broke at last in headlong rout, and the Persians fled. They converted them to Islam. Remember, Persia was not an Islamic nation. The conquest of all of Persia then followed, and the Muslim empire pushed far into Western Turkestan and eastward until it met the Chinese. Egypt fell almost without resistance to the new conquerors, who, full of a fanatical belief in the sufficiency of a single book, the Quran, they wiped out the vestiges of the book copying industry in the Alexandria Library. They burnt it to the ground. The tide of conquest poured along the north coast of Africa to the Straits of Gibraltar. And Spain. Spain was invaded by the Muslims in 710. The Pyrenees Mountains were reached in 720. In 732, the Arab advance had reached the center of France. But here it was stopped for good at the Battle of Poitiers and thrust back as far as the Pyrenees again. It was the warriors of France that stopped the Muslim invasion of Europe. The conquest of Egypt gave the Muslims a fleet of ships, and for a time, it looked as though they would take Constantinople. They made repeated sea attacks between 672 and 718, but the great city held out against them. And so I'm trying to tell you what happened in such a short period of time when the Muslim empire spread throughout this area, not through love and not through peace, but through murder and through fire. And that's what it is. Unless you understand your history, you're going to repeat it. We are facing an existential crisis in the West today from these 13th century throwbacks who will kill you or convert you, whether you agree with them or not. And unless you know history, unless you know what's actually going on in Iran, you have no idea what you are talking about. All warfare is based on deception. Do we really know the extent of the decimation of the Iranian military, what it actually is? I don't think we really know. I think the Israelis were caught by surprise when missiles suddenly were arriving in Israel. Their protection isn't working very well. We thought that the mullahs were on their knees and finished, and all of a sudden the missiles are landing in Israel. What else do the mullahs have up their sleeves? I'm not so sure. And also, what about their agents through Hezbollah right here in America and in Europe? Let's talk about America first for a moment. If we do this and we openly become more involved, and Trump launches the B-2s, which I'm pretty sure by what I see going on, it looks like he's staging and getting ready. He's going to launch them. I know Trump is looking like he's a little trepidatious. I'm not so sure he actually is. But will that trigger the Hezbollah cells here in America? I think we have to think about these things very carefully. Israel first, America first, or humanity first? All warfare is based on deception. I've given you some food for thought today on my broadcast, and I hope you'll understand that unless you know how the Arabs conquered so much of the world through terror and through murder and through fire and through the sword and through rape, just like October 7th in Israel, unless you understand that, and unless you understand that Israel is on the front lines of Western civilization, they are fighting not for us, but for their own survival. But if they fall and these mullahs develop nuclear weapons or acquire a nuclear weapon, they will then conquer the surrounding Arab nations who are either Sunni or too moderate or too modern for the 13th century throwbacks. And then it will be on to Europe, which is already half tottering. And from Europe, how far is it to conquer the West? So I'm not so sure you will understand this unless you understand history. And those who do not know the history are condemned to repeat it. That's all I have to say tonight on the Savage Nation. Again, I want to leave you with this thought. I gave you a little history lesson, which of course is not taught today. Did Iran purchase already, or were they given a nuclear warhead? Is it possible that Iran has more than one nuclear weapons development site? Do we know that for a fact? Unless you think, as they say, outside the box, or use your imagination and understand all of warfare is based on deception, you can't understand what might happen next. I also began tonight the way I'm going to end. Many of you say Israel's not our problem. We don't care about Israel. I've heard that before. Well, let me tell you why Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon. Because if they use it on Israel, next they're going to use it on Europe and then on America. They are not like you and I. They live in another century and another time. They believe that only through an apocalyptic end to life on earth will their vision of Islam spreading throughout the world occur. And that's exactly what this old bastard with the white beard lives with day and night. So if you say it's not about Israel, we don't care, you're right. But it really isn't about Israel. It's about you. But if you don't understand what I just said to you, I can't help you. That's all I have to say to you tonight. I appreciate your listening. Thank you very much for listening to the Savage Nation. Israel first, America first, or humanity first? I say humanity first, but these are not human beings. These are 13th century live in a world you can hardly imagine. And they don't, even if you're on their side, they don't like you. They don't even understand that you exist. They don't see you as a human being. They see you as a bug. Thank you for listening.